Everyone says the longsword wins. More reach, more mass, more force. They're right about all three, and they're still wrong about the outcome. Here's why. The standard argument goes like this. A longsword weighs up to 2 kilograms. A katana weighs 1.3. More mass means more kinetic energy. More energy means more damage. Longsword wins. Case closed. Except that logic only works if both swords are solving the same problem. They aren't. The longsword was built to fight men wearing 25 kilograms of steel plate. Armored knights who could absorb direct cuts and keep moving. To kill those men, you needed force. You needed to thrust into gaps, use the pommel as a hammer, grip the blade itself, and drive the point through visor slots. The longsword was an engineering solution to a specific problem. The katana was built to kill men wearing lacquered leather and silk. Fast men. Men who attacked from ambush, at close range, in the time it takes to draw a breath. The katana was an engineering solution to a completely different problem. When people compare these two weapons, they almost always put them in the longsword's context. Armored combat. Formation fighting, and then they're surprised when the katana loses. But that's not a fair test. That's bringing a scalpel to a sledgehammer contest and calling the scalpel inferior. Put both weapons in the katana's context and everything inverts. Here is the number that changes everything. A katana's cutting edge reaches 58 to 60 HRC on the Rockwell hardness scale. A medieval longsword sits between 33 and 52 HRC. That gap is not a minor difference. At the top end, the katana's edge is almost twice as hard. It holds a geometry so acute it creates a slicing action rather than a chopping one, which means it requires dramatically less force to cut through the same target. But hardness is only half the story. Hard steel is brittle steel. Push it too far and it shatters. Japanese smiths solved this problem with a technique that European bladesmiths never developed: differential hardening. The katana has two different steels built into one blade: a hard martensitic edge at 600 to 900 Vickers hardness, and a soft, tough spine at 100 to 300 Vickers. These aren't two pieces welded together. They're one piece with two identities separated by the hamon, the visible temper line you can see running along the blade. What this means in combat is that the edge can take the kind of impact that would chip or deform a European blade, while the spine absorbs the shock that would shatter a uniformly hard edge. Modern testing found that a well-forged katana edge can endure stresses up to 4,500 megapascals in 4-point bending. That is comparable to high-end industrial tool steels. This is not a decorative sword. This is a precision cutting instrument built to survive what it was designed to do. The longsword uses uniform spring steel throughout. That uniformity is a deliberate choice, not a limitation. It makes the entire blade flexible, which is exactly what you want when you're half-swording against plate armor and torquing the blade through gaps. But it means no section of a longsword's edge is as hard as a katana's edge. The longsword sacrificed edge hardness for overall resilience. The katana sacrificed overall resilience for a cutting edge that nothing in European metallurgy could match. Here's where it gets uncomfortable for longsword advocates. The katana's curve is not aesthetic. It is mechanical. When a curved blade contacts a target, it does not chop, it slices. The edge maintains contact through the full arc of the swing, pulling through tissue rather than punching through it. This is the draw-cut principle, and it reduces cutting resistance so dramatically that a katana can slice through a target that would stop a heavier straight blade. Tameshigiri tests with properly sharpened katanas regularly cut through rolled tatami mats, which simulate the density of a human limb, in single, clean strokes, multiple targets in sequence. These are not party tricks. They are demonstrations of what happens when perfect edge geometry meets differential hardening. The longsword can absolutely cut unarmored targets, but it does so through force. The katana does it through geometry, and geometry does not get tired. This is the question nobody asks. In a fight between two unarmored men, one with a katana and one with a longsword, who lands the first cut? The longsword has 4 to 6 inches of reach advantage, but the katana is lighter by up to 700 grams. At peak swing speed, the katana moves faster, and the first cut in an unarmored duel is frequently the last cut. There is a second question nobody asks, and it is more important than the first. What happens after that first cut? A longsword cut on an unarmored opponent produces a wound through impact force. Deep, brutal, fight-ending if it connects cleanly. But a katana cut on an unarmored opponent produces a wound through slicing geometry. The draw cut does not just penetrate, it separates muscle groups, tendons, the structural integrity of a limb. Surgeons who have studied katana wounds in historical records consistently note that the tissue damage patterns are unlike anything produced by straight-bladed weapons. The cuts are cleaner, deeper relative to the force applied, and more likely to sever load-bearing structures that collapse a fighter's ability to continue. In an unarmored fight, the katana does not just hit harder, it breaks the opponent's mechanical ability to keep fighting faster. Here is a detail that almost never comes up in these comparisons, and it matters more than most of the numbers people argue about. The katana's balance point sits 10 to 15 centimeters from the guard. The longsword sits 5 to 10 centimeters from the guard. That difference means the katana's effective mass is positioned further forward relative to how it handles, which sounds like it should make the katana feel heavier in motion. It doesn't, because the katana weighs 700 grams less to begin with. That forward balance actually makes it feel nimble rather than front-heavy. The result is a blade that accelerates faster through the first 90 degrees of a swing, which is exactly the arc where unarmored cuts land. The longsword's balance point closer to the guard is also deliberate. It makes the blade feel lighter in hand than its actual weight suggests, which is useful when you are using it for half-swording, pommel strikes, and the wrestling techniques that HEMA manuals describe in detail. Those techniques are brilliant. They are also completely irrelevant against an unarmored opponent who is not going to let you grab their weapon and grapple them to the ground. This is the pattern that keeps appearing when you examine both weapons honestly. Every advantage the longsword holds is an advantage against armor. Every advantage the katana holds is an advantage against flesh. These are not comparable advantages unless you specify the context. And in the context where both weapons are used against unarmored opponents at close range, the katana's advantages stack, the longsword's advantages disappear. The folding myth. You have heard that katanas were folded thousands of times, that this process created superior steel. That is wrong, and understanding why it is wrong actually proves the katana's case more convincingly than the myth ever did. Japanese smiths folded tamahagane steel approximately 10 to 16 times, not 1,000. The purpose was not to multiply the layers infinitely. It was to distribute carbon evenly through inconsistent iron sand steel and drive out slag inclusions. This was a technical solution to a raw materials problem. Japanese iron ore was impure. Folding was how you purified it without access to the higher quality iron deposits that European smiths had. Here is what that means. Japanese smiths built one of the most sophisticated, differentially hardened blades in human history using inferior raw materials. They compensated for bad ore with superior technique. The katana is not great despite the challenges of tamahagane. It is great because of what those challenges forced smiths to develop. European smiths had better base materials and made a reliable, effective weapon. Japanese smiths had worse materials and were forced to innovate at a level that produced something genuinely different. That is not an argument against the katana, that is the argument for it. The longsword is not a worse weapon than the katana. It is a different weapon, solving a different problem with different constraints. In its context, against armored opponents, in formation fighting, with half-swording and murder stroke techniques, it is exactly the right tool. But the framing of this debate has always been backwards. People assume the longsword's advantages, reach and mass and force, are universal. They are not. They are advantages in armor fighting contexts. In an unarmored encounter, those same properties become liabilities. More mass means slower recovery. More length means more commitment per swing. More force means more fatigue over a prolonged engagement. The katana's edge hardness, cutting geometry, and differential construction were not compromises. They were optimizations. For the context they were built for, they represent the most refined cutting weapon ever produced by any civilization. But here is the final point, and it is the one that reframes everything that came before it. The longsword existed because European warfare in the medieval period was dominated by armor. Plate, mail, padded gambeson, layered protection that made raw cutting power largely irrelevant. The longsword is brilliant precisely because it solved that problem. It was designed to defeat armor. The katana existed because Japanese warfare in the feudal period was not dominated by comparable armor. Lamellar construction, lacquered leather, silk binding, protection designed for mobility in difficult terrain, not for absorbing the massed cavalry charges of European battlefields. Japanese armor was not worse than European armor. It was the right armor for Japanese warfare, which meant the katana was the right weapon for it. Two weapons, two optimized solutions, two completely different threats. The question, which sword would win, is the wrong question. The right question is, which context are we fighting in? Because in the context the katana was built for, against the opponents it was designed to face, using the techniques its martial system developed over centuries, it does not just compete with the longsword. The physics does not lie. In the fight the katana was designed to win, it wins. And that has always been the fight that mattered.